Hi there, welcome to Wyckoff Technical Analysis session for Oasis. If you're new to my sessions, here are the 3 key takeaways you can expect from the session. So let's start with the weekly chart of Oasis. This is the very first time that I cover Oasis, so I've only put in these rainbow key levels at somewhere near the price point that currently Oasis is trading. And now it's time to put in the Wyckoff text. So if you're not here for the first time, you know that's the usual practice that we have to plug in these very quickly. Let's say that's the PSY, that was the buying climax, the automatic reaction, and then we've got an upthrust right there in March 2024, and then it came down for a sign of weakness, and we had an LPSY in June, and subsequent LPSY. I would consider there was an accumulation cycle, a pretty short one. The selling climax was there, automatic rally, preliminary support, second test, sign of strength. We've got a sign of strength and another test. Stack goes here. There was no spring, but we are probably going through one, so I'll keep it over there. Back up last point of support. And then there goes the next PSY and eventually buying climax. Back in December 2024. Subsequently, last point of supply. And then we've got a new accumulation cycle that we have gone in the beginning of this year. Preliminary support. Automatic rally happened back in May. And then it came down for second test in June. There was a mild sign of strength, but this heights getting lower and lower. Okay, now we are at a level lower than the selling climax, so that's why I put it as a spring over here. Okay, now it's time to enlarge it so you can see it clearer. We're still waiting for another sign of strength, potentially testing the yellow key level of 3 cents 60. So that's what we hope to see, but the current sentiments of the market just doesn't really allow that to happen. You see the rejection last week from somewhere below the orange key level of 2 cents 90. So let's expect more tests to come, meaning sideways trading. Alright, so in Oasis, it's got sufficient history for us to look at what happened back in late 2002 to 2003, or even get very near to the end of 2003. That very long trading period at a lower price level compared to the climaxes that we had, back in last year. It looks to me, it's not like a flat accumulation cycle as in many other altcoins. So we can call that one over here the selling climax, and the automatic rally went crazily high. Alright, some other altcoins, they exhibit a much flatter behavior. So assuming that low point was the spring and there was a subsequent test right over there, or you can interchange that as well because they were pretty much around the yellow key level. Okay, there were some sign of strength at a level much lower than the automatic rally. That was a crazy one over there. Alright, then that completes the big picture that we are going through and some references from the past. And let's see what the daily chart is telling us, and also whether there are any breakout potential dates from the daily chart. So we haven't put in any Wyckoff tags yet. We can borrow some from the session just now. We have the accumulation cycle, the distribution cycle, so that should be sufficient. Not this one, we're at rows, not used USD. Okay, so there we go. Let's drag them all across. This now gets to a point that's really tricky, because in the daily chart things happen very frequently and very crazily. So let's say that was a preliminary support period and we went to a selling climax back in April. Alright, assuming that's the case, I've restrained the chart to see what's going on there. Alright, so that is a PSY. Was some sort of automatic rally. And then we have this buying climax. Automatic reaction. I will just call that LPSY, not a second test. There are multiple LPSYs here. I'm not going to tag all of them because there's just not enough space. So then it went to another selling climax. Alright, automatic rally, and then it came down for some more tests before it gets to this range of mini peaks. So I would assume these are multiple distributions, because in daily chart they're just happening way too frequent. Some cycles can be really short. Okay, there were multiple peaks, so that's why multiple automatic reaction. Sign of weakness. There are some of those, but the chart becomes too busy. I'll tag just one. And then we have eventually the October 10th. That was a PSY period. And the selling climax happened just about a week or so later. It was automatic rally. And then we have just gone through a spring about 2.5 weeks ago. This may well be a sign of strength, sitting right on November 2nd. So let's try to put it this way. Okay, and this is kind of interesting. So if this was a mini buying climax, and we have gone through the automatic reaction, and also maybe this was a second test because it's pretty low. So if I change to the line chart, you see that little bump. Okay, the climax, the bump, and then the LPSY. Alright, so it can continue sideways trading or just dig deeper to show us once again a selling climax for this mini cycles. Testing this white line at around 1 cent 50. That's the bottom edge of the long-term playground. So if this is an uptrend, I know currently the small candles look like they're going through a downtrend. Okay, however, if they find sufficient support like what they did, including today, staying above the 1 cent 80 or 90 level, alright, then rather than this downtrend, potentially it is the beginning of an uptrend. If we are pessimistic, we probably only see the downtrend, but there's a possibility that this is an uptrend that's going on. So let's keep this box over here. This is supposed to be like a center line for the box, where the price would bounce between like both edges, the bottom and the ceiling. But sometimes you see it bounces off from the center line as well. Okay, so that's how we use the channel box or the air hockey table plus the center line, like the midfield line for ball games. Alright, so like I said in the weekly chart, there is a likelihood for that for the sideways trading to continue. And if this is really an uptrend, we'll continue to get into these triangles. You see where the bottom edge crosses this red key level, right? When I said the price found support around that 1 cent 85 to 1 cent 88, that kind of range, it's also finding resistance from the red key level of around 2 cents. Okay, so when this narrow trade continue, by the time we get to sometime in a week, like November 23rd, so by next session, we would be able to see a breakout. Either it's going to break the red key level, confirming the uptrend, it's going to continue, or it's going to break to this side. That actually confirms the initial idea that I've brought out, that there is actually a downtrend going on, even though it's kind of narrow at the time being. Things can further evolve. Okay, so in the next few days, if it breaks towards the downside, then we know it's actually the downtrend happening. Okay, I'm drawing this right now. It's very narrow, you can see, compared to the uptrend box. So probably not even till next weekend. Somewhere around here, you see the ceiling of this downtrend box is crossing the bottom of the uptrend, and it's pointing sometime towards Thursday. So a decision or an indication will come out in the next few days as to where the price is going to head to. We probably don't need to wait till the end of next week. And one more time point, if it is really heading downwards, in case I'm not covering Oasis next week because I'm on a floating schedule for Sunday. This November 27th, so the first day after, is another opportunity or a chance for the breakout to happen if it first broke to the downside, confirming the downward channel and challenge the support at around 1 cent 50. Okay, so that's where the possible scenarios can be, even if it's trading sideways between the white line and the orange line, like we see in this picture in the weekly chart. Okay, so hope you like the very first session for Oasis. Remember, always check the community post for the latest live sessions roster and how do I select